next council, the next paper is the council submission on the draft government policy statement on land transport 2021 and the draft national rail plan. I'll just double check. I've got Jim Fraser and Ryan Falconer on the call.
Yes, Your Worship, Jim Fraser.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Ryan's here as well.
Okay, that's excellent. Now, as members will remember, this was discussed at last week's emergency committee meeting, so I don't want to traverse anything that we covered last time. Councillors, I think, quite rightly said the way to make changes is not to leave it to a delegated subgroup, but to have the changes in front of us so that we can make a decision on that. And we now have a paper that sets out the changes that have been made. So I might just get, first of all, I'll ask Councillor Darby to move and Councillor Bartley to second the recommendations.
Moved, thank you.
Councillor Bartley?
Yeah, second, thank you.
Seconded. And Jim and Ryan, if you'd like to just do a brief introduction on the changes that have been made, I think in response to comments made by councillors, and then I'll open it up hopefully for a limited number of questions and comments. Jim or Ryan? Jim, I think maybe you could start off.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I can give a quick overview of the main changes that have been made to the submission. There are about four significant changes. The main changes are, firstly, the inclusion of a statement that the GPS investment priorities are well aligned with those priorities already approved through Auckland Council strategies and plans. Then there was a request for greater clarity on how the climate change and better travel options priorities are to be effectively delivered through transport system investment and its integration with land use, planning and delivery, and specifically the importance of road and street design and achieving these priorities, and recognition of the role of natural systems can play in achieving the climate change priority. The third major change was a request for GPS 2021 to provide a more direction on how Māori outcomes and equity can be incorporated into investment in the land transport system. The change to the draft rail plan was a very, it's only one change, and that was a request to include in the section on the history of rail in New Zealand a paragraph that acknowledges, recognises the relationship Māori have with the rail industry in relation to existing agreements and arrangements with Māori. That's all.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. Ryan, is there anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think Jim's summary is on point. I would add that the statement that's been added with respect for the National Rail Plan, it was a great learning opportunity for me as much as anything, and I do think it's an important inclusion in our submission.
Thank you very much. Maybe if I give the mover and the seconder a chance just to speak briefly on the paper, and then I'll see if there's any questions or comments from other councillors. Councillor Darby.
No, I think last time, Mayor, you said hopefully this just appears before us and we're all signed up to it. It just reflects some of the feedback. It wasn't just from me, it was from Member Wilcox, it was from Member Coombe and a couple of others, I believe. And everything that is in the submission does not go any further than what's in all the strategic direction setting documents that we're already signed up to.
Thank you. Councillor Bartley, any comment on this?
No comment from me, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Look, I won't go through a division call on this, but if you could just indicate if there's anybody that does want to speak on it. It does represent, I think, the concerns raised by 3 councillors, and I do understand that it has the support of officers. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So, are there any other comments or questions, or can I put the motion?
I had a question, Mr. Chair. Linda Cooper.
Linda, question.
Around para 21, with the change to take into account to must give effect to, and I just wonder whether that, well, I mean, some people would like it to box us in, but sometimes you have, you know, there might be opportunities that sometimes when you are, you know, doing a must give effect to can often mean you can't do what you need to do right then. It just might take away the ability to be nimble. I just wondered why we had that instead of take into account.
Thank you. That's a legitimate question. Jim, can I ask you to address that? Obviously, give effect to is stronger than take account of, but presumably there is still some flexibility built into that. But Jim, have you got any comment to make on that?
Yeah, I think the comment was the reason for the suggested change was to make it more prescriptive that in fact actually this is what will be done, rather than leaving it open to the possibility that you know, just taking account of is a potential, as I suppose, for specific items to be missed. You don't need to give effect to, which is much more prescriptive.
Okay, thank you. So it is more prescriptive. Obviously, it's stronger, but I'm imagining that there will be a degree of well, I mean, this is our submission to the government, so whether they pick that up or not is entirely up to them. I guess the intent of this amendment is just to perhaps strengthen the government's approach to making sure that climate change features more strongly in the land transport statement. Further questions or comments?
Pippa here, I'd like to speak, please.
Pippa.
Thank you for the opportunity for bringing this submission back, and so that it could be further polished. And I just wanted to make two acknowledgements. One is just the fact that it really demonstrates the value of having strategic plans in place, which in most cases have been unanimously agreed to around the council table. So this is just strengthening its alignment with those policies that we already have signed up to. So I think it added value to the submission to take it away and strengthen it, particularly around the climate change and land use. And I also just wanted to acknowledge Chair Taipere, and what I think it really demonstrates the value that having members of the IMSB bring to the Emergency Committee, because it brings a perspective that we would have missed if we didn't have IMSB members. So I really did want to thank what has been added to this submission in recognition of the comments that Chair Taipere made about how often in our reports we talk about there's the Māori overview is often outlined as a negative, and in fact there's a lot of positive input that can be put into our reporting and our submissions. So obviously I can't speak for the IMSB members, but from what I heard last time, it picks up on some of those points. But I just want to flag in paragraph 8, this could probably be dealt with under minor amendments, and it's good to know that Chair Taipere has this delegated, is it lumps together Māori and other vulnerable communities. And I think that was exactly what Chair Taipere was asking us to consider, how we frame things in a way that we don't always put Māori as a deficit value. So that's just my observation of that, but I will leave it for the delegated group to fix up if there's some direction on that. But overall, I'm really pleased to see the submission strengthened. So thank you for the work on that. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll take it to the vote. Okay, what we're doing is approving the draft submission, and you'll note that the second recommendation is delegating it to authorise only any minor amendments and corrections. It's not broader than that, which I think councillors had problems with last week. So unless there's a call for a division, I will put the vote on the voices. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary,
Aye.
I declare that carried.